first thing you want to do is make sure that the place where you're applying the prosthetic to your model is clean. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe down the arm with some 99% isopropyl alcohol. There are other better things you can use to clean the skin, especially things that won't dry out their skin, but this is what I got for now. Alright, this is a... Let's do that again. Alright, this is a pre-made zombie bite prosthetic from Wiggly Effects, and what I'm going to do before I apply it is just brush out some of the excess powder that they used during the casting process. That way the paint should adhere better to the prosthetic. So in order to apply the prosthetic, I'm first going to wet down the backside of the prosthetic with my adhesive of choice. This time it's actually going to be isopropyl alcohol because I don't need this to stay on for very long. But you can use something like Prosthetic to apply an encapsulated silicone prosthetic. Yeah. You want to gently lay it down. I may have applied too much of the isopropyl, but that's okay. You want to gently lay it down flat on your model's skin. And you want to come back in with a brush dipped in your isopropyl alcohol and start to chip away at the very edge of the prosthetic to remove the flashing. And the baldies that this is encapsulated in, or whatever cap plastic that's used, should start to melt away easily, leaving you with a pretty smooth edge. And if you're not happy with your edge, just make a pushing away from the prosthetic motion as you move around, and this ensures that there's a fairly good edge. Just make sure you don't get too close to the prosthetic itself, otherwise you won't really have a lot of room to work with. Oh boy, today's not my day. Remember, always chisel away from the prosthetic, otherwise you're probably just going to end up bunching it up more than it already is. As you can see here, I don't have the world's best edge this time, possibly because I wetted it down too much before I put it on the actor's skin, but that shouldn't be a problem, because with these types of beginner out-of-the-kit makeups and things, you're likely just going to end up slinging a bunch of blood on it anyway, and nobody's going to see your edges. So if you ever find yourself with really crappy edges you're not very proud of, sling some blood on it. Trust me. I know that doesn't sound very professional. It's not great for character makeups, but, you know, saying to character makeup, this is, you were attacked by a zombie or a vicious feral hobo. Oh yeah, those edges are... There's something. Alright. Let me just get rid of some of the little boogers of cap plastic around the arm. Or, if you want a really gross effect, just leave them. Just leave them. Alright, and now I'm going to get started on the actual painting of the prosthetic. And what I'm going to be using are some alcohol paints from Skin Illustrator. Stuff's pretty great because it comes dry and won't activate like it sounds until you add 99% isopropyl alcohol or their proprietary activator. And this is the palette that I'm going to be using today, the Skin Illustrator Onset Effects palette, which is a mini version of their regular effects palette. When I apply the color, I want it to be done in washes, so what I'm going to be doing is applying some sort of blotchy looking things with a sponge. Just any old makeup sponge, but you want to make sure that you tear it up first, because there are no hard edges existing like a makeup sponge in nature. If a zombie bites you, you're not going to get perfect little square chunks taken out of your arm. And now to start, I'm going to activate some of the makeup and mix up some colors that I might like. I'm going to start with a fairly translucent blood tone. Just do a wash over it to kind of redden it up, because immediately after somebody is injured, you know, bruising starts to develop in the skin, especially if this was fairly recent. And I don't mean that bruising in the sense that it's going to turn purple and green, or rather yellow and green, because that doesn't take place until much later in the quote-unquote life cycle of a bruise, but there is some kind of internal bleeding that'll result after a bite like this. You see, I did have some square edges ending up anyway, so I want to kind of break those up. And maybe come in with a little bit of purple color. Just to kind of get that bruise going on. Here's what the inside of the palette looks like. The lid's handy for mixing because one wipe with plain 99% isopropyl and it's clean. That is so purpley, which is great, in my opinion. As you can see, when I went in, I applied a couple more washes of those bruise tones, the red and purple, and when you get a bite like this, bruising will start pretty soon after the initial bite. But notice how my bruising isn't a perfect circle. It kind of comes out to the side here in more random patterns and shapes, because when you get an injury, it doesn't perfectly conform to the shape of the injury. All that blood pooling beneath the skin tends to be a little erratic. And one thing you'll especially notice is I went in around the tooth marks and painted in some blood tone. I will be applying actual blood in just a second, but because I applied that base tone of the alcohol ink, it'll have a backdrop, and it'll look a little bit more realistic. So you always want to make sure you put a base tone down most of the time where you're putting blood inside of a wound. The blood I'm going to be using today is from Thomas Serpent. I haven't used it before, but I have confidence. Thomas Serpent is a fabulous painter, really great. But initially, I'm going to go in with some of this real gross, jammy, dark gel, and you can see here that it's essentially brown when you smash it out. You can see the camera in there. Hey. I'm going to use a brush actually to apply it. You want to make sure it's not a brush that you're going to be using with the alcohol paints again, because you clean blood a different way than you clean alcohol paint out of a brush. Blood needs to be cleaned with water, whereas alcohol paint is cleaned with alcohol. I'm just going to go in here, and a little goes a very long way with this thick stuff. This is thick with 8 C's. Huh? Oh, yeah. It looks all gross and scabby. A little bit of dried blood. What are you wincing for? Just break your arm. Beauty is pain. Kind of glop some in there, take up some of the tooth hole space, just so you can kind of see zombie really got in there, and the blood's already clotted up pretty good. Especially kind of underneath where the teeth might have made impact, because that's where most of the injury is going to be. That looks a little perfect, so I'm going to go in and scuff it up a little bit. No wounds should be pretty. But yeah, look at all that gross brown. Lovely. Alright, and then I'm going to clean off the spatula. Always clean off your tools before dipping into another container, and you want to use a disinfectant as well. So I'm gonna disinfect this with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. But as I said, if you're actually cleaning your brush at the end of the day, don't use isopropyl alcohol to clean up blood, because it'll just kind of gel up and get even worse. But because I wiped off the majority of this smooth, flat spatula, it shouldn't be a problem. Alright, next I'm going to go in with some regular color Thomas Serpent blood, and this stuff should definitely flow better. Well, it should have a little bit of flow as compared to the blood gel. And this stuff, though it is like an effects blood, it can effectively be used as paint. I think the bottle even labels it as prosthetic paint. for professional use only. That's funny. I'm just gonna get a little bit on my palette. You don't need a lot. You can always come back for more. Oh my gosh, it's not coming out. Internal seal. Oh. It's gooey. Very gooey. Beautiful. Alright, just gonna get a little on my palette. Oh yeah. That's the stuff. See how it flows? Alright. And I'm going to actually go in with another brush just so I don't kind of cross-contaminate. Well, no, it shouldn't be a problem. It should still be sanitary for me to use the brush from the earlier gel blood on this stuff, just because it's not going back into any containers. It's only going to be mixing the paint here on the brush and on the palette, which isn't an issue. I'm just going to go in and go over all those spots where I'd previously applied the gel blood, and that really gives it that shiny, gooey, there is still blood flowing from within look. And you know, like I said, a wound shouldn't be beautiful or even or symmetrical, so you really want to kind of, you know, mix it up, kind of just screw it, dab some blood in other places, make some let's see, where are the incisors at? Incisors are down here, so maybe some blood was dragged this way when the initial bite was performed. You can see a little bit of it beading up here. That is not a problem because it doesn't look too bad, but that's probably a result of this blood being on top of an encapsulated prosthetic. Some bloods are known to have issues kind of staying together on encapsulated prosthetics, but not a problem. Stuff does still look great. Yeah, just get it a little more gory, and let's find my edges, and you know, just dab some blood out there. Yeah. Like it never even happened. Yeah, I see a little of that kind of powdery white peeking out from under here, so just gonna tap some around. Isn't that beautifully messy? Oh yeah, there's the big honking edge. And now this is the final look. As you can see, I covered up some of the bad edges there, and it looks sufficiently gory and bloody. Tapped around the blood a little more, and yeah, that's basically how you apply a pre-made encapsulated silicone prosthetic. I'd like to note that this was encapsulated in super baldies so that it could be dissolved by 99% isopropyl alcohol, whereas something encapsulated in baldies will only be dissolved by acetone. So there you have it. That is my zombie bite.